Welcome back to another podcast, baby. I'm your host, Victor, and my co-host, Mark. Mark, how are you doing on this fine, dandy Monday? Also, St. Patrick's Day, is it?
Yeah,
It is?
it is.
I had no idea.
Yeah.
I just saw people talking about it.
Another coworker was like saying, like, yo, I kind of forgot it was a holiday today.
Yeah.
And I was like, yeah, you're right. I kind of don't see why we still celebrate it, to be honest.
I mean, everything was during the weekend. Irish people still exist, so we'll let them have that.
Yeah, in America, though, we have to celebrate it like,
Yeah.
like we're from there. But yeah, everything's good. How are you?
I'm good, man. Can't complain. I was just going to mention something, and I just forgot. Yeah, I didn't do anything for St. Patrick's Day. I never do. I don't think I ever have in my life.
Just like, yeah, man.
Shout out all my Irish. Is that? I think they do celebrate it in Ireland, don't they? Is this
do.
Okay? Yeah, I was trying to think. Is this a Cinco de Mayo thing? Because Mexico's not like Cinco de Mayo.
Yeah, I remember I heard somebody talk about it, and I think it's like the way they do it over here. I think it's more so like people just decide to just get drunk.
Chicago turns the river green.
Yeah, like they just
because they have a lot of Irish people apparently,
and they just do a lot more out of pocket stuff over here. But I think in the actual in Ireland, they actually do some stuff. Obviously, still drink, but there's a lot of it more like cultural stuff that pertains to over there that they do and celebrate a festival and
like haggis and Irish potatoes. That's our thing, right? I don't think that's a them thing. The coconut and the and the cinnamon, that can't be them. Because I don't think there's coconuts on Ireland.
I think that's
a bold assumption to make.
I mean, yeah, to say that there's coconuts in Ireland. I mean, if there is,
it is an island, kind of,
true,
sort of.
But it's just like the temperature.
Yeah,
I would not expect the coconut to be like.
Is it? Aren't they connected? They're connected? Is it island actually? I just said that. Isn't there like three? It's like Ireland, Scotland.
Yeah.
But are they like landlocked? Like, are they connected to land anyway?
I don't know. I think so. Hey,
you're sounding very American right now.
Yeah, you can tell.
But it's okay. More importantly, Mark, it took like a week and a half or something. He finished Legend of Korra, guys. I prepared some stuff just to ask for your opinions and thoughts because we went over everything. We know what you were getting into. I explained it to you. So
yeah,
before we get into anything, just give me your general consensus in like a minute.
General on how I feel about the show. I was very how would I say this? Just like I was very wrong on how I perceived it before. I thought it was just something that was like, oh, they just flopped on this because it's not, it's not Aang. And I was just like, that's just when this came out in 2014, when I saw that was again, maybe sophomore in high school. So I'm still just, my inner child, just like, nah, nothing else. Yeah. It's just anger, nothing else. So I just kind of hated it from the jump. After watching it now, and I guess also just appreciating, I guess, more anime too on top of that, I was just like, wow, okay, they really did cook with this. Of course, obviously the stories are a little bit different. So that's what you got to appreciate. Now, also the cast and stuff too. So it was cool. Like I said, overall with the show, I think it was great. After you told me kind of how the seasons were, I kind of saw what you were seeing. And yeah, for the last season, I'm not going to lie, that was kind of corny. Yeah. Just like I would have expected a season like season 2 or something like that to be the last season. And just the fact that happened with Kuvera being in a sense the last kind of boss before she's just done with everything and the show's over. I was like, that's it.
Yeah.
And she made a spirit portal too from fighting just a regular person. And I'm thinking that should have happened with what's his name?
Unalak?
No. Oh yeah. The spirit though, the dark spirit. I forget his name because it was Rava and then
Uvatu or something.
I think so. And I would have expected something like that to happen fighting him, but it happened with some regular metal bending chick where this freaking
Kuvira
mech of a monster shot this guy. I was like, what is going on in this show? But yeah, that was just my whole thinking of it because I thought though, leading up to it though, every season was pretty good. I would say 4 though wasn't it was my least favorite.
Yeah. I mean, it's they thought it was just gonna be 1. And then how many times can you we got to scramble and expand this? So they had to do it 3 times.
Yeah.
So,
and I think they just at that point realized there was nothing else. I feel like they could have maybe if they had more time or was given more time.
Yeah.
I feel like they probably could have, but I felt like something like Kuvira, and don't get me, and I don't know if I'm mistaken. I just feel like when I watched Avatar: The Last Airbender, I felt like the thing that was really good about that show is that you understood what the premise of the whole show was from jump from the first season. Again, obviously the way the show was taken care of was completely different of how KORRA was. But it was like overall, you realize, okay, the Fire Nation attacked.
Mhm.
So we clearly know like the Fire Nation is the villain.
Yeah.
They have to go and like do what they got to do to either like hide from them, do it like, you know, save the world. But at the same time, during the show, there was a lot of like side quests going on.
Right.
And I felt like something like Kuvira was definitely a more side quest thing.
Yeah.
It should have not been something that
It was a
like,
filler season.
Yeah, like it just felt like it was way too more important than it needed to be. And I'm like, okay, you got this random metal bending chick.
Mhm.
Nobody can stop her. And I'm like, what's going
Yeah.
on? Like, she can't be this bad.
Exactly.
Like, she's just a little too overpowered.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong, though. She was moving, she was scrapping. I was like, okay, some of these fight scenes are kind of hot. But at the same time, I'm like, all right, so everybody in here just don't know how to beat her.
Mhm.
She's just like unstoppable. So it was a little weird. Fun. It was fun seeing Toph. I was like, okay, I see you.
It's like nice to see you, Twinkle
Yeah,
Toes.
I was like, okay, let's go. So that was cool. And seeing some other people like that. Obviously, Zuko, you know,
Old
him and his
Zuko.
old self.
Iroh Jr.
Yeah. And it was just like, yeah, there was a lot more that I wish the show had like shown, I guess, or just like went into a little bit deeper with, but clearly again, how they were like supposed to handle the show, I guess that's the reason why.
Yeah.
Because like you hear Zuko, I think, tell KORRA or something saying like, oh yeah, I gotta get back to the Fire
Nation
because his
his
daughter.
is
And
the
I was just
Fire
like,
Lord.
oh, he has a daughter. I'm like, okay, maybe we'll go and like
Yeah.
get more into her. You literally don't see her till the last season, and it's only for like about 2-3 minutes because they're in a council meeting about like Kuvira about to invade. And I was like, oh, that's her. Like, wow, that's pretty cool. Like,
Yeah.
and then that's it. And I'm just like, dang, like that's all we got to see of her. And we didn't even really get to see that much of the Fire Nation either. Like, I know we saw all of it in Airbender, you know, but at the same time, I'm like, it's still a part of the show. You shouldn't just like keep it cultivated in
It's
like Republic and then Earth Kingdom.
Yeah.
That's all it was.
It's such a massive it's such a massive universe with all the 4 nations too, because I mean you get to see, I don't know what it's called in the Earth Kingdom, but the Earth Queen was Zahir,
yeah.
that lady,
Mm-hmm.
and like cool, but like it would have been cool to like pull up to the Fire Nation and like see her and like
Yeah.
So it's such a big world, but also the same, like I will say also there's comics that like dive deeper into that.
Okay,
So
yeah.
it's like, and those were also being released at the same time as all this.
Okay.
So it's like you kind of pick and choose like what you want to
yeah,
dive super into.
and again, it's so hard for me to be like and try to compare because again, like how you told me they were like they had to like work on the show.
Mhm.
It's just like Airbender is like, hey, didn't do all that. You got everything in one show. I mean, of course, yeah, we probably wanted more in certain things. Like till this day, I always think about, and it's cool because they even touched in it in KORRA too, and now the character came up, and even the, I guess, area you would call it, when she went to the spirit world with the library and the owl. And I was like, yo, like this is so dope, because in the first season, like I remember when I saw that as a kid, I was like, bro, this is so interesting how like there's this huge library of knowledge. There's this freaking owl that
watches
talk,
over it. That's from the spirit world.
Yeah, and that's what's crazy. It's like you didn't know. I mean, you knew like he was like obviously a creature, a spirit creature at that point, but you didn't understand like why he was there. Like what was his real purpose? His purpose obviously was just knowledge, but just like when you see like a big library and you're just like, yo, like where did this come from?
Who put this here?
Who put this there? I want to know more of like the history behind it. And then seeing in KORRA it comes back, and I'm just like, are we not going to talk about this?
Yeah.
Like, bro, this place was insane in like Avatar, like Last Airbender, and I'm like, yo, like let's like talk about it more or see more things, and it just didn't happen. And I was just like, you know, I get it, we got to stick to the script, you know, but those are those moments where it's like in Airbender where it's like they would have took a little side quest and you would have got maybe like 2-3 episodes on that, and that would have been enough for me to feel like, okay, I understand what's happening here, cool, like we're done. But it was like whatever was like on time, like it needed to happen in that episode. Otherwise, they probably were like, we ain't gonna get this done. So.
Yeah, and I mean, even in that, like that whole arc within the show in Airbender, it was like they went into the library and they like searched for a certain scroll, I believe is what it was for.
I think so, yeah.
And like Toph was on the outside with Appa, like holding up the building before it collapsed. Yeah, and then that's when they stole Appa.
So much stuff, yeah.
And like that's when they spoke to the owl. And there's like also like Cole the Face Stealer, which was another person in
oh, I remember that.
Yeah, it was like if you
that
like
John was so creepy.
If you make a reaction, it'll steal your face. And like it actually stole like an Avatar's face, I believe, or like an Avatar's spouse.
Yeah, it was something like that. It was a woman, I remember.
Yeah.
Yeah, bro, that joint was crazy. See, like stuff like that, bro. I'm just
Yeah.
sitting here like, yo, this
It's-
world is crazy.
And it's dope that, I mean, obviously it's a spin-off / an expansion of Avatar: The Last Airbender, because from the jump, like when we go to Kyoshi Village in Airbender is when we first get introduced to the spirit world,
Yeah,
because he has to save that panda that turns into like that weird monster thing. So like from the
Yeah.
jump, they introduced the spirit world.
Mhm,
But
that's
like this
true.
series was the ability to like expand upon it and like dive deeper into it, which was cool. But before we go into anything, even though we just spoke about it for 10 minutes,
Yeah,
give me a out of 10 scale of what you think of like the show.
I would say it's a 7.
I think that's fair.
I would say it's a 7. I wouldn't put it lower just because like it did what it had to do. You know, it had at the end of the day, great just like character development. It had great visuals. Like I said, the fighting scenes were like pretty cool too. And just overall, just like again, like the story, funny characters, like
Yeah.
everybody had their like quirks and whatever. And I just felt like I could like be more involved in each character. So that was cool. But the reason why I just wouldn't be like the best, obviously getting higher than like a 7, I would say, is because again, like story just felt everywhere.
Yeah.
Seasons were just felt like they were out of place.
With what they were given, I think a 7 is fair, like
Yeah.
high and impressive and fair
yeah,
for what they were given.
for sure, yeah. And that's what I'm saying. Like, if they wanted it to be higher, that's what they would have had to do with like making the story a bit better. Just expanding a little bit more on stuff because you felt like it just seemed rushed. You know, they just did what they had to do in every episode. Also, I just felt like there was also a lack of just like I said, there was good character development as far as like how they learned, but I also felt like nobody got stronger.
Yeah. So I say Bolin.
Bolin, yeah, he was cool. He learned how to lava bend.
Yeah.
And I was like, bro, this is tough. Mako literally stayed the same the whole
Yeah,
show.
but he became insignificant after, like,
Yeah.
besides being a love interest, he was kind of insignificant
Yeah.
after a certain point.
him and
He almost died. They were like, he was like holding, I think it was Kuvira season. There was something about a blow up and he was doing like lightning bending in that
he was
building.
doing that. That was pretty cool. I was like, okay, finally we're starting to see him do lightning because that's another thing.
And he became a cop, didn't he?
Yeah, he became a cop, a
Yeah.
detective. My thing was like that whole like I don't know, maybe I just felt like they were very like, okay, let's try not to focus at all on anything with firebending because I felt like they were like that was too much in Avatar.
Yeah, it was the whole like,
It was the whole show. But at the same time, I'm like, bro, like Mako like did lightning like twice the whole show. I'm like, bro, that's like one of the most toughest techniques. When we saw that in Airbender, we were like, yo, lightning,
Wild.
like not everybody can do that as a firebender. And we were like, bro, people just like, yo, that joke was sick, bro. And I was just like, come on, we need to see more of that. But yeah, Mako, I just felt like he just was, like you said, insignificant after like the season 1. I was like, okay, he doesn't get any better. Like you saw him being like a pro bender and you were like, oh, okay, this bull's kind of hot. Like he clearly can do like some crazy moves also while bending. So you're like, okay, you might see some cool stuff, but didn't see that much. Bolin, he got pretty good. Tenzin is just Tenzin. He was
already a master.
Yeah, he's already a master, and he can't do anything too crazy. Freaking Katara's daughter, I forget what her name is.
same. But
yeah. But just like I felt like you saw her a couple times, which obviously I understand, but I felt like she always got whooped too, and I'm just like, come on, aren't you like
Yeah. But she was
Avatar's kid?
But
like,
she was like, I mean, I feel like we could talk about this for hours. Like, there's so much like deep into it, but because you hear about, all right, first off, before I say anything in my credit, I was just letting him talk because I was like, he's a blank slate. This is his first time saying anything. Anything that I say further, I just want to preface it with Legend of Korra was weakened as a whole because of corporations messing it up. So she's a flawed character and the show is flawed because not by the fault of the artists and creators that were a part of it, but by money essentially, and them just being like, oh, like we're gonna just make up another season. So like it just kind of messed everything up.
I agree.
If they had known that Zahir, Aman, Kuvira, Unalak were going to be a thing from the jump and be able to world build and like expand upon that, I feel like the show could have been a 10 if you gave them a proper time. Like, oh, y'all have 4 seasons, like go crazy. But they didn't. But touching to your point with Katara or Aang and Katara's daughter, but she's the waterbender. And it was cool to see like the way their relationship with Aang was also highlighted a little bit briefly. Because
cool.
Aang was a monk. did not know his parents at all. He was just among other kids and other monks. So in his eyes, like, he doesn't know how to parent. Like, he just knows how to like be on his own. And like being a monk is like, yo, like you're on middle ground at all times. Like, you're not like overly bugging out.
You're kind of like only, I wouldn't say focused on yourself, but you are trying to make sure that you are at a level of like peace a lot of the time.
And spirit, like just spiritual wellness, like all
so
around.
It's like when you end up putting that as being a parent, it's kind of like hard. And I'm gonna say this reference in correlation, it's gonna be kind of a stretch probably for some people.
See what you did there. Correlation.
Yeah, correlation, you know. But it's kind of very similar to Star Wars and Jedis. They say the reason why Jedis aren't supposed to have any love interest or be married or anything like that is because at the end of the day, you're supposed to focus on the Force. And once you get in love, it like ruins that and it messes up with that and that whole idea of that. So just that kind of idea of like, it makes sense where like when you add that into him being a monk, it's like
it's enlightenment.
Yeah.
And like they even touch on it in Airbender when he goes to meet up at the temple with the one guru. And it's my favorite episode of the show.
I'm trying to remember.
I watch it so many times. It's like this guy who's a guru who's in one of the southern temples, and he pulls up by himself, and it tells you to break through all 4 chakras, and he has to really like let go of like worldly possessions, anger, trauma, and love. And he breaks through the first 3, and he has no problem. He's like, it's peaceful. They have to drink the onion and banana juice, and he thinks it's gross. But then they get to the last one where it's like love, and he's like, you must cut all detachments from love, and that means letting go of Katara. And he's like, hold up, time out, like I'm not ready to do that. Which is like it flows into like this whole thing with him being a parent.
Yeah. On
top of that, he's the avatar. So not only is like he's needed in his home life.
True,
the world literally needs him at all times. He's essentially like the president almost. So it's like it's weird. So like for that both to come together, I think he did a fair job.
Yeah.
And you add into the fact that he was the only living person who was an airbender. And he had 3 kids hoping that he would be able to expand upon that. And only one of them got that. So then,
far in the beginning.
Yeah. But like I'm speaking in the regards of him being a parent. Because when he was alive, that's as far as he knew.
True, for what he knew.
Tenzin was the only lasting airbender.
Yeah.
Luckily, Tenzin had kids with, I believe she was a non-bender, his wife.
Yeah, she didn't know.
So... And then he ended up having 3 airbenders.
Yeah.
You didn't
maybe 4. I mean.
Oh yeah, because they just had a newborn.
Yeah, so I don't know.
But we had Milo, Janora, and I forget the other kid's name. The other daughter. Kaya? Kia? No, Kaya's the kid. Kai's the kid who like
Kai's the
was
kid
a
who
thief.
Comes in like the 3rd season.
Yeah.
I think it's Kiki or something like that.
Yeah, I think you're right. So that's just interesting to see. And then saying that back to your point about the waterbender daughter, did I figure her name? I'm assuming he can only do so much in terms of like teaching her / like to his fault, he probably could have done more for his kids, like being there. But like for the circumstances, difficult. And like, how can you teach? Like his airbending thing was like his main focus because that was his dream from the jump. Like he saw his entire world die. Yeah,
that's true. I don't know. I guess it wasn't so much of like me thinking like, okay, they could. I don't know. I guess it was just like I thought I would have seen a little bit more.
And Katara's cold in the show, so like she should have been cold.
That's what I'm saying.
But like, she was like the traveler hippie who was like, oh, like free spirit one. She was a waterbender with Aang's personality.
Yeah.
And then Tenzin was an airbender with Katara's personality.
Yeah.
And
very
then
strict,
and then Boomy was just Uncle Sokka.
Boomy is funny, bro. I ain't gonna lie.
Boomy was his uncle because he was a non-bender.
Sure, yeah.
Until certain things happened, but
and that was cool to see in those episodes when they did show up.
He was a war general.
Maybe it was like season 2 where they showed up and they were kind of catching up again. They were like on vacation and they were just going through that whole like deep just conversation
talking about like you were dad's favorite
and all that stuff like that, and how obviously Boomy didn't have any type of power, so he just felt like he disappointed Aang from the jump. Being the firstborn too, like that has to be crazy.
Yeah,
to be the firstborn of the Avatar and just be
not not even just a non-bender.
Yeah, like that.
Not
has to
water
be
or air.
Yeah, it has to be crazy. And I don't know like the age difference, but like to have that time of just realizing like, all right, like I don't know what to do with you until me and Katara try again for another kid. It's kind of like, have fun.
And I think Tenzin was the youngest.
Yeah, Tenzin was the youngest. So
like, baby 2 was like, yo, cool waterbender, but like
waterbender, okay.
But like, what
Katara,
the fuck?
What do you do? Like, no, but yeah, that has to be crazy. But yeah, I enjoyed that a lot and seeing that part because again, anything with like having to do with Aang, I'm always just like, okay, let me like listen in, like what exactly are they talking about? And the same thing with just like whenever you see other characters like Toph or just Zuko and everything like that, like it's always cool to hear like again the backstory, and if they give like a little like bit of information of like what happened since when the show ended in Airbender to like now, like if anything new showed up or anything like that. So that was pretty cool though.
But yeah, how do you feel? Because there's Korra defenders and Korra haters in a sense, or like people have their criticisms for Korra. Where do you stand? Do you stand with her decisions that she made throughout the show? Where do you weigh in on it?
Well, in the beginning, no, I didn't stand with her because she was just very hot-headed. But then as you watch it, you realize that's just every character. You know, they got to go through their ups and downs. They got to start from somewhere to end up building. And she literally says that at the end. She was like, I have to go through so much grief in order to be able to realize that, like, I can't just care about myself. I have to care about everybody else.
That's one of the Korra haters' biggest thing is like she would rush into too many fights and like get herself into trouble unnecessarily.
Yeah, I felt like I saw that a lot. She was just like very like, oh, I see somebody who's making me upset. I'm just gonna start fighting.
Yeah, I'm the Avatar. I got it.
And then she got her butt whooped every time.
That was another thing. Is that she lost so many major fights, at least the first time, if not point blank.
And that's what I got annoyed about towards the end because she fought against Kuvira, coming back, getting the poison out of her, thinking, oh, she was good. She fights Kuvira, she gets whooped.
And then Kuvira looks at her in her eyes and is like, yo, go into the Avatar state. I'll like, beat your ass.
Like, she still didn't care. She's like, please do it because I promise.
Yo, do it.
I promise you. It will make it look so much better for me.
I look so cold right now in front of my soldiers. Like, do it.
And she would have had her freaking Janora and I think Opal save her. Like, bro, oh my gosh, yeah. I was just like, bro, you really like, why did you even start the fight? Like, that just got me tight. Like, why'd you even initiate it?
I just picture Green like, ooh, do it. I need you to.
Like, no way to come in. No, I got this. I swear, yo.
I need her to know that I'm cold like that.
Honestly. Yeah, like when she got whooped, I was just like, I was literally saying that to myself. I'm like, bro, you're so trash. Yeah. Like, come on.
So that was a big like gripe that people had.
Yeah, because it's like, even when Aang was like the underdog in a fight, he still got some good clean hits that like even if he did end up like leaving that fight, like it felt like okay, he learned something from it. You know, like because there was plenty of fights where Aang got into a situation where he didn't win. They initially had to like retreat and evacuate.
Yeah, but a lot of those times he was getting either jumped or backs or like hit from behind.
Yeah, that's true.
What was it like? Do you think of a time that it wasn't like that? Because I'm blinking on that. Because first comes to mind is after he leaves the guru being like, yo, Katara's in trouble. I'm not going to detach my love from her.
Yeah.
Because they're in the Earth Kingdom and they're like, and Azula, Iroh, all of them are there. Mm-hmm. Is when he's fighting with everybody. He sees they're surrounded by the
when they're in the cave on the ground?
When they're surrounded by like the Earth Kingdom.
That was like the very first time, I think. That wasn't the very first time he went to the Avatar state, but there was like, I don't know.
That was the first time that he did it after. Because, so what happens? They go into the cave. He's fighting everybody. It's Zuko's there after he already detached from Iroh. Iroh helped Aang get to that point in the cave. Azula's there.
And I think Zuko was fighting Katara.
Yeah, and Azula and Zuko and all of them. Yeah. The Dai Li is also there, which is the Earth Kingdom with with all the Judy and all that. So they're on the cave. Aang pulls up trying to help and like things are going well, but then he sees that like they're all surrounded. So he sits down, goes into it, like he builds a little fort for himself and makes that detachment and goes into the Avatar state for the first time, being fully in control of it because he made that detachment.
Gotcha.
But when he's during his ascent going into it is when Azula shoots him in the
back.
Shot him
in the back. Okay, yeah.
So like I'm trying to think. I don't think there's ever another time where like that happens.
I can't remember per se, but I just felt like again, Aang he always seemed to be able to like get something going where it's like he might not always win that fight there and there, but he always was able to leave something there on the table to show like, all right, cool, like y'all better not forget like I'm still the Avatar.
Yeah, and he knew when to fight and when to not.
Yeah. And, you know,
maybe the water temple when Sokka's girl turned into the moon was I forget. I think at that point he might have lost.
I'm trying to remember though, like what was the fight exactly though?
They went to that temple for Katara to find a water teacher.
Okay.
And the water teacher's like, nah, like you're a girl. I'm not gonna teach you because you're a girl.
I think I remember.
Then Sokka falls in love with the moon princess of that area. They're holding some ritual. Aang is there. And then the reason the fight happens because at that point, Zuko's still actively searching for the Avatar.
Yeah.
So he just pulls up and is like, I know he's here. I'm going to just start fucking people up.
Yo, Zuko was on site. Zuko Loki is Korra.
Yeah.
Evil Korra.
And I'm glad you said that because a big thing that people were saying, which I think is very dumb, is that people make the argument that like, oh, if Korra was a male character, she would not get as much hate as she does. And they're saying that the only reason that she gets so much criticism and hate is because she's a woman, which I think is a hunk of bullshit. Because I never thought of a lot of like the top 5 characters that people love in the show are women. Because you have Toph, you have Azula, you have Katara, you have a bunch of others that people love just in their own right, for good or bad, and it completely disregard the fact that they're women.
No, yeah.
So like,
I don't think that's the case. And I personally feel like for me personally, if Korra was a guy, I would probably hate him even more.
Yeah.
Personally, for me, I think I would hate him even more. I'd be like, bro, you're so trash.
And then somebody said, like, oh, somebody made that point. It was like, yo, like, everybody loves Zuko, but nobody likes Korra. And they basically did the same thing. It's like, that's not the same thing. Because this man from birth got burnt by his pop and was like, yo, if you want to come back to your home at 13, go find God. Basically, go find the most powerful being in the universe and bring him in. As a 13-year-old or however old they were.
Yeah.
And during all that, he's like, yo, like I'm tripping. And like he has like character development. Korra doesn't get that until like the very, very end.
Yeah.
So I'm glad that you made that comparison, but like it's still very different.
No, yeah, for sure. It's different on how like they started, because from the beginning, Korra didn't have any type of like challenges. I would say in the beginning, she was very like the only challenge she had was that like she was really just kept away from the world because they were just afraid of like being known that where the Avatar was, who it was, you know, and all that. Like that was the only thing. But like before that, she was just living her life, just kind of training, doing what she needs to do. And she was cool. And then it was only until when she actually decided to leave on her own and then start messing stuff up, getting into trouble, kind of starting it all is when.
Yeah, but like, and that system was put in place because Aang put that in place because of what he went through in a sense, where it was just like once the world knew, everybody was on his ass.
Yeah.
And then he put that in place to give you teachers so you can learn all 4 elements properly.
He didn't have
so you can be protected. So you can have an easy path and have mentors to teach you to be the Avatar. And people it was like, oh, that's such like that was like a negative thing for her. People like to paint in that direction. And I'm like, but there was a purpose behind that. And from the jump, which I always like, with her getting her ass whooped, with her having all that teaching, and from her knowing from an earlier age that she was the Avatar and being like embracing it. Aang did not embrace it.
Yeah, he kind of hated it because he felt like he was alone, and he felt like clearly he had so much to learn within so much little time.
Yeah,
like he was like such on a time limit with everything.
And he didn't want he never wanted to be it. Korra was like, yo, I'm the Avatar, you got to deal with it, dush, 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 all this other shit, and then still get clapped the whole series.
Yeah.
So it's like, if you're gonna embrace it and have all this help, and like how can you be so like bold about it? And then make these poor decisions versus Aang, who's 12, and Korra, who's 17, in a sense, 18, 19 by the end of the series.
Yeah, I'm trying to remember. There was a specific time I'm trying to think of just like there was a moment where clearly I was like, oh, it was kind of like, yeah, it got me so tight because she was so fixated in the very beginning on being like, I want to go to Republic City because I want to train with Tenzin. And then as soon as she got there, she just didn't want to listen to him.
Yeah.
I was like, what is the point? Why did you come if you were just going to do everything on your own? Bo was telling you, calm down, relax, do this. Don't get me wrong. Like, sure, everybody learns differently. And that's what you found out. Like, oh, where she needed to learn was being in the pro bender state to try to like tough it out herself, I guess, rather than just meditating all day. So I kind of understood. But it was just like, she could have been more nicer on trying to figure that out. She's over here like getting annoyed with Tenzin and stuff because she's over here talking to him when he's trying to tell her like, oh yeah, you just got to meditate and all that. And she's just like, no, maybe it's not this. Maybe you're the problem. And I'm just sitting there like, yo, you better relax, bro. Like this Aang child. Like
she goes into the Avatar state and like Aang just start fucking her up.
Yeah, like I'm just like, yo, you need to relax, bro. Because that's what got me so tight in the beginning. I was like, I literally like was deeping it like, how did you ask for this? And literally 2 episodes later, maybe even 1 episode later, you're over here getting mad at Tenzin because he's telling you what to do. And you're not like, he literally told her like, oh yeah, go through this old, airbending,
training ground.
Thing. And she literally just got whooped in it every time. And she just started freaking torching it. I was like, bro, like
this is like an old ancient relic thing that everybody
I'm really just thinking like if I was like, yo, here bro, you can have like this, you can borrow this, and then you just start messing up. I'm like, bro, like that's not even
because you suck at it.
Yeah, like what's up with you? Like you're so mad. Like oh man, yeah, that got me tight, bro. So yeah, in that beginning state of like the show, yeah, she just was very, like you said, hot-headed and everything. And I'm just like,
and from how she pulled up to Republic City and like destroyed a freaking car and building.
Yeah, her intentions were right, but I also was thinking, I'm like, when that happened, I was like, bro, what is up with these like people who have power? They're just like, oh yeah, like there's people doing bad. I'm just gonna like destroy this whole block.
It's like the Avengers.
Just
like
to
it's just
do
like,
it. Yeah,
I saved the world, guys. I saved the city.
Yeah,
destroyed.
Behind them, it's just like fire and explosions, bodies. Like, come on, bro. Like, you could have went around about that the whole different way. Like, I don't know.
And then the pro bending is like, yo, like you're the Avatar. Like, this is not a good look. If you were to freaking pro bend, people would have issue with it. Like, focus on your training.
Yeah.
And then she goes and decides to do it anyway. And then it's like, yo, fucking Amon is like, this guy's taking away bending. This is a very serious issue. We need to go about this calculated.
And she said, nah, I want to fight him. Like, where are you at?
Yeah.
Amon, where are you at? And then literally shows up.
Oh, yeah, she went on the mic, didn't she?
Yeah, she literally went on the mic.
Said, I'm looking for you.
Yeah. I mean, I ain't gonna lie. He did jump her, though.
Mm.
So, like, yeah, he kind of, but what was so cold about him is that he did that, but literally was like, I'm not taking your bending away now. I'm going to do it at a different place in time where I could show the whole world. And I was like, dang, bro, he really just murked you, bro. Like,
and then people take issue with the fact that he even exists because they show back a flashback when like the whole issue with, I believe it was his dad during Aang's time, when he was in trial and he used the blood bending on everybody, and that became an issue, and he ends up like fighting back, and he, Aang locks in because he's getting blood bent, and he turns into Avatar. So he's like,
yeah, that jaw was kind of hard. I ain't gonna lie. Like, he was running away, and Aang was just like, as soon as he did it, his bones and everything just flicked back. I was like, oh snap.
So, but people have issue with like, oh, he could have, if Aang would have handled it then this wouldn't have been an issue later. But like, he's a monk. Like, I don't understand how people don't get that. Yeah. Where so many times it was like, well, Ozai, he's like, it was very clear that he could have killed Ozai because Ozai thunder lightning bolted, bended lightning.
To what?
And during the fight, Ozai takes lightning and bends it at Aang. And because of Zuko, Aang knows how to redirect it. So he redirects it back at Ozai. And he's like, never mind, and shoots it into the sky. Mm-hmm. So it just shows like he never has intent to kill.
Oh, yeah.
Which is the problem with most protagonists. So it was like, it could be ended a lot sooner if they had the intent to kill, but these are good people. Yeah. So they never want to kill. Yeah. So Aang was never going to kill anyone if he can't, like if he doesn't have to.
Yeah.
So with the whole thing with Amon, it's like he was never going to do that. And people were complaining like, oh, it's Aang's fault for being so soft or a pacifist. Like, yo, he's a monk. It's against his beliefs to kill anything.
Yeah, he wasn't going to do that from the jump.
Yeah.
Like, there was in season 4, towards the end, Baatar Jr., which was obviously Kuvira's husband, well, was supposed to be husband. Like, they capture him because they're like, oh, if we capture him, we'll ask how to destroy the machine or whatever like that. And they literally have him tied to a chair, and he's just sitting there, and she's just like, oh, you're gonna tell us how to do that. And he's like, and what if I don't? And she grips him up in the air, and he's just like, yeah, you're not gonna do anything. And I was like, of course. I was like, why did she try doing that? I was like, I would have known.
Because her initial thing is just brute force a lot of the time. Like,
I was just laughing because I would have been like, if I was in Baatar's shoes, I would have said the same thing. I would have been like, you're not gonna do anything. Like, I'm not gonna say anything because you're not gonna do anything.
And then, what was it? She was like, oh, like, I'll keep you away from Kuvira. Like, you won't get to see your wife or whatever.
And then he started freaking out. Yeah. And then she shot a bullet at him. And he was like, all right, she crazy.
Yeah. She don't give a fuck about me.
She don't care about me. And I was like, yeah, I could have told you that.
But in the sense, it's like, my issue with people who make these comments, because like, Aang, of course, was he perfect? No. But like, every Avatar is just kind of like, his job is to just continue on the whole role of it. Because have you seen the whole premise of the new one that's coming out?
I actually haven't seen it.
So the entire premise of the show is essentially because Korra decided to leave the spirit world open and keep everybody locked in and like not blocked away from each other. The world went into chaos, and the Avatar is no longer seen as the savior of the world, but the destroyer of the world because of this. So now everybody hates the Avatar, like, even more so than they did at the beginning of Korra, because she left the spirit world open, because the world is literally in a doomsday state right now.
Well, like, that's so weird to make that story the type of story it is. I mean, I get it, but I just felt like when it ended, it was the complete opposite. Like, everything was like,
yeah, because everything was cool in that moment. But when they opened, there was the stuff going on, like the trees and everything, Republic City, and like there was, and then Korra went into the spirit world and was like, "Yo, I need your help to fight Kuvira." And she was like, "You're no different than Kuvira. You want to use us as a weapon to fight against Kuvira, who's using us as a weapon. I don't want any part of this." So like there were so many instances where it was like, "Yo, like this is not meant to be a thing." And then they spent a couple episodes explaining why Avatar Wan decided to not do that.
Yeah, that is true.
And then Unalaq gave you more reason to not do it. And then she lost to Unalaq, even though her entire family and group was like, "Yo, don't fuck with him because he's shady." And then you lose thousands of years of avatars because you didn't want to listen to anybody.
That was crazy too.
And now there's new Avatar who has to basically change who's a twin. And the one one's an Avatar, one's not. They've been separated since birth.
Do they have bending though?
Well, one of them has to. I don't know about the second one. They haven't given details about it.
I wouldn't be really upset if they don't.
I'm assuming. I mean, one of them's the Avatar. They do have to. They have to.
No, that one. Yes, I'm talking about the other.
Oh,
twin.
we don't know. And then the one that is the Avatar, I believe, is missing a leg or something like that.
Okay, they're really making.
And it's a kid.
They're really making this character be like, yo, he has to try everything in his power. She has to try everything in her power to, like, really get everybody on her side.
It's from the Earth Kingdom, and
I already know there's gonna be a leg joke.
It's her and her companion trying to figure everything out. But yeah, if you want to blame that in the same sense, because everybody's defending Korra to no end, the people that defend her. If you want to blame Aang for causing issues for Korra, you can say the same thing about this new Avatar that's going to come in.
But barely.
What do you mean?
What Aang causing problems?
Exactly, but but that's their argument. It was like, oh, like Aang didn't do his job.
It was
but if you want to make that same argument, you could say the same thing for Korra. So you can't have it's one or the other.
Yeah.
Which I don't think Aang did anything that was that deep.
Aang did literally everything he could. Like you said, he set her up so well so that way she can learn how to be an Avatar. That was literally everything Avatar Last Airbender was that he didn't. So he had to travel everywhere just to learn.
Yeah.
He was doing all those stuff so she wouldn't have to do that. And yeah, I don't know. That's just kind of weird in my opinion.
So that was my thing, is like when people make these things for her.
Yeah,
I just don't understand it. And then if you want to say the same thing, which I still don't agree with, but you can say the same thing about Avatar Roku, who was before Aang. And the whole thing with that was that Roku, I think you know, but Roku was friends with the Fire Lord because he was the Fire Nation. He was the Avatar, but he was originally from the Fire Nation. And he grew up with the Fire Lord before Ozai, which was Ozai's dad, and they were friends and everything. And then I forget his name, but the Fire Lord during Roku's time was like, low key trying to like take over the world shit. And Roku was like, yo, he caught him in the middle of it, like planning. He's like, yo, if I catch you doing this shit, we're gonna have problems. And he kept them in check throughout the entirety of his life. It wasn't until towards the very end, where there was like a volcano erupting the Fire Nation near where the Fire Lord was, that Roku went out of his way to go save everyone because it was killing people. And that's when, and they were like super old when this happened. That's when the Fire Lord backstabbed him and killed him in that sense and made it seem like it was an accident.
Yeah.
So people's excuse was like, oh, that basically the whole thing with the Last Airbender series started because Roku didn't do his part, but he did. He just didn't want to kill his friend. Yeah. He was like keeping him in check while he was alive, making sure nobody was getting run over. Everything happened after he died.
Yeah, he did what he had to do. It's not his fault that he wanted to believe his friend was a good person that he thought he was.
Or at least just like, I don't want to take it there, but I'm going to keep my eyes on you kind of thing.
Yeah.
And then that Fire Lord basically took advantage of the fact that the new Avatar had to be born and grow up. So while the Avatar was dead, he did his invasions and everything, taking over the world. So like, what can you really do there?
Yeah, you can't really blame anybody. Yeah.
Like he can, like, he's not the end all be all, the Avatar. His whole thing is to keep balance. Like, he wants to make sure that everybody's on an even playing field.
Yeah.
So I don't really get, that's my beef with like Korra, where it's like, you could have prevented a lot of the issues that came up because you had so much help. The only thing I'll give her is that she had a weaker team. I also think she has weaker villains. Do you agree with that?
100%.
Like, in my mind, Azula's clapping like a lot of those characters in Korra, bro.
Yeah.
For just their groups alone, like the gang / Korra's group, like Bolin, Mako, like none of them are touching like Toph or any of them.
Not at all. Not a single.
Kuvira's not that.
The strongest person I would say in their group would probably be, aside from like Korra, would have to be Bolin.
Yeah, and that was like towards the end.
Yeah.
And like in my eyes, Kuvira's getting clapped by Toph.
Yeah.
Like 10 times out of 10.
Yeah, but she would make a whole suit out of rock and just start whooping people.
Yeah, and she made metal bending.
Yeah, yeah.
Tenzin alone almost clapped Zahir by himself. The only reason that didn't happen is because he got jumped. And he's just an airbender.
I'm trying to remember when that happened though.
They like invaded the air temple. All of them. And like basically Tenzin and his siblings were fighting off a bunch of them. Mm-hmm. But like it was Zahir and Tenzin, and Tenzin was giving him belt to ass.
I remember, I remember. It wasn't toward the end where they started interfering.
Yeah,
I think the one, the bull who did lava bending, like kind of interrupted through some lava or something, and
then the woman with no
arms
that had the water arms was cold. She was tough.
In the beginning. I was like, why does she always have water in her arms? I didn't realize
she had no arms,
and I was like, oh,
yeah. It's kind of cool that like they incorporate, because even in Last Airbender they had the bull in the wheelchair that could like fly on. He had like hang glider.
Yeah.
But yeah, like Zahir or Tenzin was whooping Zahir, and Aang taught Tenzin, so Aang is dog walking Zahir.
Yeah,
and then Katara could bloodbend against Aman because she broke it off of what's her name? I forget her name. I had it written down. The old lady that taught her in the first place.
Oh yeah, I remember that.
Hama taught her. She broke out of it on her own. So Katara Loki could break out of it. Aang could definitely break out of it because you already saw him do it to Amon's pop.
True.
Who's missing? Who am I missing? Unalaq? No, I'm saying like just like the villains. Unalaq. Yeah. I give anybody.
I mean, Unalaq was kind of hard. I ain't going.
Unalaq was his boost was spirituality, and if we're going off of spirituality, Aang's clapping. He's a literal monk who got taught around that.
But he could also bloodbend too.
Aang?
No, Unalaq wasn't he? Also able to. Yeah. Okay.
But his avatar state could negate that.
Yeah, that's true. But I feel like there's a lot of situations where, like, well, I'm not even going to get into it. I'm just villain being a villain. You know what they'll do. They'll go and hurt the other person to try to be like, oh, I'll kill them if you don't do
this. Of course. But like fighting wise, like, are you like that nervous over the Fire Lord? On the day of the sun when he was at his most strongest and Aang dog walked him?
Well, yeah. I don't know about that. Yeah. It's a big difference.
And like Aang never fought to kill. That's another thing. Like you see that in a lot of series like Naruto. It was like Naruto could have been a whole lot shorter of a show if Naruto was like, I'm just clapping body. Like he could have killed Sasuke like from the jump.
He could have killed Sasuke. He could have killed Gaara. He could have.
Yeah, like he could have stopped a lot of shit. But it was just more so like I'm gonna be the peacemaker, like, or at least subdue the person, not end them.
Yeah.
So I don't think a single one of her villains were that difficult to deal with.
Nah, they weren't, to be honest, especially the last one.
And then she had freaking Transformers on her side. I don't know, like,
yeah,
I don't know what that was all about.
I don't know. And I also was just so confused. Like I just felt like, I don't know. Like I said, even though she knew how to do all the elements, I just felt like she wasn't taking full advantage, and it just seemed like she was just throwing them. That
was another comment that a lot of
people
make.
She was just throwing it and not incorporating any type of like technique with it.
Punches and kicks, and we got used to seeing Aang or Katara or Toph like be so like on the fly and like tough with it, and like actually showing technique. Like they even highlighted it in the first show, where it was like each element was based on a certain type of martial art. Where it was like water was Tai Chi, and like I forget the others, but like it was based on. So you saw that in their movements. Mm-hmm. Whereas like Korra, you could I guess attribute it to the pro bending stuff. But all of her, like a majority, or a lot, there were some instances where it wasn't, but a lot of the times her stuff was just punch kick, whether it was air, fire, water, earth. Like it was just like her just being in a boxer stance.
Yeah, and I felt like it was very also a little bit like, I don't know, maybe they did when I think about it now, but it was just crazy because it's like first season, the whole idea was that she couldn't airbend. She learned how to airbend. I just feel like that was just completely a thing that was just
out of like panic. Out of like, because she was in that hallway with the mom.
Well, it was also because she lost like everything.
Yeah,
and she only gained it airbending because she never
because
knew
of Aang.
Yeah,
Aang brought it back. He gave her her bending back, which is another thing that would feel like, yo, like Aang didn't help or like whatever.
Yeah.
She lost it. Like she legit almost ended Avatar's period.
Yeah, she did actually. Yeah.
Future, and she definitely got rid of the past ones, but Future was about to be gone because she had no bending.
Yeah, exactly.
And Aang was like, yo, I'm giving you your bending back. Like, here.
Please do something, please.
And then she was in that hallway and she was like, wait, what was that? And she, which is like, that's not airbending at all. Like, so many times you see Aang like just do like a lot more like smooth shit.
Yeah.
So that was another like gripe that people had.
Yeah, and my other thing that I feel like we don't need to touch on it a lot, it just kind of like confused me, and it was at the end, and I was just like, all right, this is just like...
That's confirmed though. That's canon.
No, I don't have a problem with it. It's just like I'm confused as to like how did this even happen? It was just so random to me. Like that's what I'm saying. Because it was very random.
To put it out is that you start the series off with Korra, Mako, and Bolin.
Yep.
Bolin has a crush on Korra. Korra has a crush on Mako. Homie hopping.
Yes, bro. Literally to everybody, bro.
So she was like, oh, like Bolin's nice. I'll kind of give him a chance. But then she kissed Mako, who's his brother. And then they're dating. And Asami appears. And Asami's a baddie and
but
rich.
But then, like, from the beginning, though, she didn't even care for her either. She was like, because she seems pretentious.
Because her sights were on Mako, and like, she like Mako
she
liked
was, like,
her.
I guess rich too in that sense. So I'm like, okay, you didn't even like this shorty, and now like,
and then there's that confusion there. They're dating, not dating, dating, not dating. Now Mako's with Asami. And then cheats on her. I think they kiss at one point. So that's another thing.
It was literally like day after.
Yeah.
Like, it was just
and then he's like, I'm focused on myself. I'm gonna become a cop. And then while Korra's going through her mental health stuff, I think if I remember this correctly, Asami kind of like helps out, which I guess plants that seed of like they start to like.
Yeah, she didn't she helped out, but when she like got, I think it was like again towards the last of the third season where she got poisoned from what's his name? Zahir. Like the whole this is when I kind of started thinking a little bit about it, because again, like it was just very random. They would have a lot of just like one-on-one
intimate moments,
and I'm just like, these are just girlfriends. Like she even confirmed it too. She's like, oh, I never had like a girlfriend to just be able to hang out with. So I'm like, all right, they cool, they're just friends. Like it's whatever. Like that's just me just thinking like, okay, yeah, that makes sense. Like again, Korra grew up kind of like by herself, just like at the water tribe, just learning how to bend for the rest of her life. She didn't have any real friends, regardless if it was a guy or a girl. So I'm just thinking like, okay, Sami's here. She's just like, oh, cool, girlfriend. Like that's whatever. And then again, they just had a lot of it, like just one-on-one time. I'm like, all right, whatever. And then she started, when she got poisoned, she was recovering. She was like, oh yeah, I just wanted to write to you and not write to Bolin or Mako. And I was just like, but why? Yeah. It seemed a little weird. Like I'm like, again, maybe it's because she's just like, oh, you're a girl, yeah. And I'm just like, yeah, that's cool. You just trying to chat to somebody that would understand. And she even said that she's like, I don't think they will understand. I was like, okay, yeah, sure, whatever. And then towards the end, they're just always just like, oh yeah, like it's so nice to see you or whatever, and this and that. And I'm just like, okay. And then the end just happens, and I'm just like, what? Yeah. Like why? Like my thing that it was annoying about it is just like I would have been so much like more okay with it had it just happened. Like had they just like put it on screen
throughout the series,
but instead they just kind of did it so subtly.
Well, they had to. It's like it's like what 2013, 2014, like, and it's a child network. Like how much can they really dive into? Now it's a lot different because like there's like parent like gay couple parents and like other things like thrown into cartoons now, like on Nickelodeon and stuff. Yeah. Like and there's like gay, like it's thrown in a lot more. But like that time, like that was very new. You can't be like as blatant with that. And even then, it was even if these characters are in the show, they're not like outwardly kissing or anything like that, as far as I know. So at that time, definitely was not going to be cool. And then the show itself was already probably on rocky feet. So Nickelodeon was never going to green like that. But in the comics and stuff, they release post the show because they shows the adventures of like Asami and Korra in the spirit world and stuff.
Oh, okay.
Like they do kiss and like it is like they're a couple and they act like a couple and they make it a known thing. So like. Yeah, but for that, like they were never gonna allow them to do that. Why it felt so vague, but like it was always intended to happen.
And it just felt very confusing towards the end because I'm just like, okay, we saved the world. It's just a regular girl, like she just knows how to metal bend. Anyway, we saved the world and we got Varric, probably best character in the show.
Yeah, hilarious.
Honestly, just
Julie.
Like, yeah, do the thing.
Do the thing. I was like, oh.
Yeah, I was like, okay. I was like, yo, tear about to come out. I ain't
It was
gonna
like,
lie.
finally. No, you know what moment had me like emotional was when Jinora became a Airbender master.
Oh, true. And they shaved her head.
Yeah,
and
they did the
ceremony
whole
and everything.
I was
And of
like,
course,
this is
Korra
fire.
had to mess it up by they showing the last scene of her just like sitting there all depressed. Like,
Yeah.
not about you. Right? This is Jinora's ceremony, bro. But yeah, like again, they save the world, I guess. They're at the wedding, and she's just like, yeah, you know, I'm just not in the mood to dance anymore. And then they're just talking, and then out of nowhere, they're just like, yeah, let's just go on a vacation. I'm like, vacation?
They had to throw like hints.
Yeah,
basically,
I'm like,
they couldn't
what are we
dance.
talking about? Vacation?
What are we talking about?
Yeah, I was like, what vacation? She's like, let's go to the spirit world. I'm like,
go kick him with Iroh. He got tea cooking.
Yeah, I'm like, okay, sure. I'm like, that's not would have been on my first list,
Yeah.
but I mean, like,
I need a net.
seeing how much I dealt with the spirit world, I would have thought she would have been like, let's go anywhere else. But she was like, yeah, bet. And I'm like, okay. And then I literally said it in my head right before it happened. I was like, okay, they're walking up to it. And I was like, I swear, if they hold hands walking into this light, I already know this is what it is.
Yeah.
And they literally went like that. I was like, yep, it's all right. I'm like, yep, it is. Because then they even confirmed it more. They looked at each other and held both hands. I was like, yep, it's it. I understand now. Because like the whole time I was like, I think it is, but I can't be too sure. And once that happened, I was like, yeah, it's confirmed.
Yeah. So, I mean, that happened.
Yeah, it just the way he brought up, it was just so confusing to me.
Which they're not the first couple to be that, because I read there's books for Kyoshi, Avatar Kyoshi.
Okay.
Like before, like basically from her not finding out she's the Avatar up until like she like is and all that stuff, and I read those, and she in that one she's also with a woman, so it's like it's not the first, but it's only so much you can show.
No, yeah. Again, it's not my problem. Like, I have no issue with it, like what it is for that. It's more so like how they went about it. Like why like she had to be such like a homie hopper. Like that was just like that's why I'm just
it
like
could have just been Mako or Asami from the start.
Yeah, like it didn't have to be all this like confusingness, because it just felt like there was just a little like weird with that. Like that was like my whole issue with it. I was like, bro, like how many times are we gonna be jumping back and forth, having this anger, being annoyed, going back to it? And I was just like, bro, can we just focus on saving the world?
I would have like, even if they did end up together at some point, I would have preferred for her to be like, you know what, like I'm just gonna be to myself for a little bit.
And that's
like
what
I've been through a lot.
And that's what I thought it was gonna be, because once she broke it off with Mako, I was like, it seemed very serious that it was just it, and it was just like them just trying to regain being friends, like just learning the dynamic.
I need some Avatar me time.
Yeah,
like,
and that's what I thought it was gonna be. And then at the end, like you said, it just kind of showed that. I was like, oh, okay, never mind. There's actually something more there that's hidden that we just didn't really know about. So, but yeah,
overall, because we've been going for almost an hour, I want to round this out.
Yeah.
It has its flaws, but it's not the writer's fault, like we said before.
Yeah.
I do like the additions of like pro bending. I would have loved to see more of it, but like it was cool to see, and like the fact that it was even a concept was cool. The spirit world expanding was dope. Seeing some of the old characters was cool. Seeing how bending in a world that like continued to like advance in technology showed how like bending still was incorporated in some way. So seeing like how they work in factories and like some of the things that like were advanced, the cars and everything was dope.
My bad. Before you finish, the one other thing that I got, like, I realized towards the end too, I was like, the whole idea of the first season was because they felt like people who didn't have bending felt like there was a prejudice and stuff like that going on. And then it just like, I realized, okay, because they got rid of Amon, I just felt like, I was like, but what if those people feel that they still feel oppressed? I was like, they didn't just say like, oh wow, our leader, you know, got exposed, so never mind, we're all cool again, guys. Like I was so confused. I realized
not get arrested.
I realized that towards the end. I was like, but wait, like
that's
I
still
forgot
a problem.
The first season. Then they have a whole issue of there being benders and people who weren't benders, and I was like, wait, why didn't we touch on that again? And I was like, whatever.
So that was another thing. Is like I liked that conversation around that, because it was like you never really thought of it. Like people just. And Last Airbender was kind of like there were benders and non-benders, and they just kind of lived their lives.
Not to mention it wasn't that advanced too. So it kind of felt like a little bit more like bending was in a sense, I guess, needed.
Yeah, to like do a lot of the things that they would do
that they need to do on a day to day. So that made sense.
Yeah. So like that was cool that they made that conversation a thing. The highlight of like Korra being essentially beaten up and like the PTSD and depression and like things like that came out of it was cool to see because like it showed that like it's like yo like she real life going through it.
She's still like an actual human, like she's a regular person,
and like the poison stuff and like just figuring all that out. Her changing her haircut at some point.
That's where it all started. Simon was like, I like your haircut. I was
I like your bob.
And I was like, oh, there it is. That's where it started.
So it had some highlights, but there's also a lot of things wrong with it, and like that's okay. You know, like it's okay. It's okay for her to be wrong. But some people just swear up and down that she's not, even though like she's low key. I think this kid in the new series is younger than Aang, and if not the same age, and you kind of set her up like on some crazy shit. Because
not even. I mean, most likely though, they're depending on how long they're gonna make the show.
I think it's one season.
That dang.
Okay. Yeah. Apparently, it's just one season. Hopefully, they don't make the same mistake as they did with Korra. But
I mean, I hope it's longer. I just feel like, because how long was Avatar?
Avatar was 4 seasons, but I don't think it was like a lot of episodes per season. Because it was just like Book of Fire, Book of Water, Book of Earth, Book of Air.
Okay. Well, yeah. I guess for me, like, I just feel like one season isn't enough unless you're dropping like 30 episodes.
Oh yeah, it's like one season of like 20 something episodes, I believe.
Okay.
Because I feel like maybe the story. Maybe the story itself is very brief. Because the twin, one that's not the Avatar, like her whereabouts are unknown. There's like an evil thing going on. I'm assuming that like the Avatar one is gonna have to stop the one that's not the Avatar, and that's the main villain. I'm assuming.
See, that's why I asked, does that other one have bending?
I would assume.
I'm like, I know that's what the whole plot is going to be kind of about.
Or it could be that she's a non-bender and they bring up the topic of benders and non-benders.
That's where I thought.
Because the Avatar is a destroyer of the world, and like we really don't need her anymore. Like close the portal up, like wrap it up.
Get these spirits out of here.
Yeah. Not to mention her only guide is Korra right now.
She gonna be old, and she just says, you know what? You got a problem, just run into it. Just start fighting. It doesn't matter. Look at me. I got through everything. And look at the world. It's terrible.
It's great.
That's literally how I can see it be.
But yeah, so it has its flaws. It's okay that it has its flaws.
Yeah.
I enjoyed it a lot more than people complain about it.
Exactly.
Like, I think it's never that to that degree. But I still love this whole universe as a whole.
Like if you ask me right now what I want, like another like 2 seasons of Legend of Korra, I would actually say yes.
Yeah.
I definitely would feel like I would enjoy watching it because like again the story and just bending itself, like it's so cool and how they incorporate the story. It's just for me, it's like how they can make a good plot out of it is the issue with me because like you just need to make something that seems like it makes sense.
Mm-hmm.
Like you just can't add like a random character who's just like upset about something and then somehow like nobody knows how to stop them. It just seems very like okay, like y'all you can clearly see that you're reaching. But yeah, that and just like incorporate a little bit more like history and stuff because I just love learning more about like how things started and why it is.
Well, the timeline for the entire like Last Airbender thing is like massive right now. I mean, it's gonna be going on for a couple, like the next 3 or 4 years. Like it's like so much content. Nice. So we have this series. We have I think there's a Zuko movie for just him, focusing on him.
There's live action, right?
No, absolutely not. I'm not touching the Netflix live action.
Thank you.
Okay. There's older like the Last Airbender crew as adults. That movie's coming out next year, I believe.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And then I think there's like a plan for a fire.
Do you think it's going to be the same voice actors? Probably not.
No, because they're going to be like in their late teens, early 20s.
Right. I mean, technically, that would kind of make sense.
Not for Aang though. Aang sounds like a child.
Oh. But
like maybe Sokka or Katara could probably have the same one.
Yeah.
But yeah. So they have a movie coming out with them next year. I believe there's already it's not announced, but there's a series in plan for a fire avatar to kind of complete each element as an avatar, and then some other movies in between. But yeah, they have a lot coming. Hopefully you guys are fans of the show because we just rambled about that for over an hour. I don't think we've done an hour episode since our first year of doing this.
It just shows you guys what we're passionate about.
But if you guys haven't, check it out, form your own opinions, let us know. We appreciate you guys for listening. If you guys are still going, anything you want to say before we get out of here?
Yeah, I love the addition that they still brought the cabbage guy back.
Yes.
That was funny.
My cabbages.
Yeah, he somehow grew this whole big corporation.
Yeah.
I was like, this man's crazy. He's never selling cabbage. His family generation is crazy. That, and then there was also a part in the show where it was when she got poisoned and she kind of like lied that she was going back to Republic City. She was like on her own, where she met some guy in the store and it had Aang's picture. And
From the swamp town.
Yeah, and
it
it
was
was a little
like,
cameo where he had the John. He was like that.
Yeah,
I was like, that's
he's
so
like, try the
funny.
Aang special. He's
Yeah,
like,
and it's just him just. I was
spinning
like,
the
that's
rocks.
so funny,
Yeah.
bro. I was like, I remember that. But yeah, that was it, man. So yeah, hope you guys enjoy and get into it. Watch Avatar.
Absolutely, bro. Hope you guys enjoyed. Shout out Milo, because when you talk about Milo and his fart bending.
Yeah,
We love you guys, and we'll see you next week.
Peace.
Bye.